My name is Anna, and before I understood freedom, I learned obedience. I learned it quietly, instinctively, the way a child learns to hold her breath underwater. No one ever sat me down and explained the rules, yet somehow I always knew them. I knew when to speak and when to stay silent. I knew how to smile even when my chest felt tight. I knew that approval was something to be earned, and love was something that could be withdrawn without warning. I was adopted when I was 5 years old. At least, that is what they told me. They said I was lucky, chosen, saved. They told the story often, especially when guests were around. How generous they had been, how kind, how many children waited their whole lives and were never taken home. They said I should remember that every single day. They said gratitude was the price of belonging. So I learned to be grateful. Grateful when my clothes were chosen for me. Grateful when my schedule was decided without my input. Grateful when my feelings were inconvenient and quietly ignored. Gratitude was not optional. It was expected. And expectations, in that house, were never negotiable. Our house was enormous. Marble floors stretched endlessly beneath my feet, cold even in summer. Chandeliers hung from ceilings so high, I used to wonder if my voice would disappear before it reached the top. The walls were lined with portraits, men and women dressed in elegance, their expressions stern, distant, unsmiling. Sometimes I felt like they were watching me, silently measuring whether I belonged among them. I grew up surrounded by beauty, but it was the kind that observed you, not the kind that held you. Every sound echoed. Every laugh felt too loud, too exposed. I learned to walk softly, placing my feet carefully so they would not announce my presence. I learned to speak with precision, choosing words that pleased, rather than words that were true. I learned to read moods before sentences were finished, to anticipate anger before it arrived. My adoptive parents were admired by everyone. My father was a powerful businessman, sharp-eyed and commanding, always in motion, always on the phone, always discussing numbers that seemed more important than people. My mother was elegant and composed, her posture flawless, her smile practiced like a performance she had rehearsed for years. Together, they looked like perfection. People envied them, complimented them, trusted them. Inside the house, they were something else. Love was conditional. Approval had rules. Silence was safer than honesty. I understood that early on. I understood that asking questions was dangerous, that disagreement felt like betrayal, that obedience was rewarded, and independence was quietly punished. Still, I tried. I studied hard, because excellence earned praise. I attended the best schools, surrounded by people who assumed my life was perfect, simply because it was expensive. I learned how to sit through endless dinners with investors and guests twice my age, smiling politely while they spoke over me, about me, around me. I learned how to disappear without leaving the room. I thought that if I became perfect enough, polite enough, successful enough, grateful enough, I would finally belong. That one day, they would look at me and see not an obligation, not a responsibility, but a daughter. I was wrong. When I turned 25, everything began to change. At first, it was subtle, whispers behind closed doors, conversations that stopped when I entered the room, meetings that lasted late into the night. My father's voice grew sharper. My mother's smiles grew thinner. The word loss appeared more often than growth. The word risk replaced success. I could feel the pressure in the walls themselves, like the house was holding its breath. Then one night, they called me into the dining room. The table was set formally, despite there being only 3 of us. Candles flickered, casting shadows that distorted their faces, making them look unfamiliar, almost cruel. My stomach tightened before anyone spoke. My father folded his hands. My mother smiled. They told me they had found a solution. They spoke calmly, confidently, as if they were presenting a gift. A man, an investor, a magnate, a savior, older, much older, wealthy beyond imagination, interested not only in the company, but in me. They spoke as if this were an honor. They said marriage would stabilize everything, save jobs, protect reputations, restore what was slipping away. They spoke of sacrifice, of tradition, of responsibility. They said families had made arrangements like this for generations. They said love could come later. They said I owed them. I listened without interrupting, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. My hands trembled beneath the table, but I kept my posture straight, my face composed, because that was what I had been taught to do. When I finally spoke, my voice trembled. I said no. The room went silent. My father's eyes hardened instantly. My mother's smile disappeared, as if it had never existed. They reminded me of everything they had given me, everything I had cost them. They said I was being selfish, immature, ungrateful. They said I did not understand the real world. That night, something inside me finally shattered. I was never their daughter. I was an investment. From that moment on, my life was no longer mine. My phone was monitored. My schedule was controlled. My freedom narrowed until every movement felt watched. The man visited the house more often, his gaze lingering on me in ways that made my skin crawl. Everyone spoke as if the decision had already been made. Everyone, except Sophia. Sophia was the housemaid. She had been there longer than anyone else, moving quietly through the background of my life. She never spoke unless spoken to, never lingered, never judged. But she watched. One morning, she brought my breakfast and noticed I hadn't touched it. She didn't scold me, didn't ask if something was wrong in the way people do when they don't want an honest answer. She simply sat down. "You are being sold," she said softly. I looked at her, shocked. And then I cried. Not the quiet tears I had perfected over the years, but the kind that shake your entire body. I told her everything, the deal, the marriage, the fear, the suffocating sense that my life was closing in on itself. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took my hand. "Then we leave," she said. I told her it was impossible. Guards, cameras, power, money. My parents would never allow it. Sophia smiled not gently, but with a fierce certainty I had never seen before. "They don't see me," she said, "and that is our advantage." From that day on, we planned in silence. We pretended nothing had changed. I continued my role, the obedient daughter, the graceful future bride. Inside, I was counting minutes. Sophia memorized routines. She knew which cameras malfunctioned during storms, which guards dozed during night shifts, which doors were locked out of habit rather than necessity. She told me about her home. A small house in a remote village. No nearby cities, no connections. A place forgotten by ambition. The night we escaped, the sky broke open. Rain poured like it was trying to erase the world. Thunder masked our footsteps. Sophia led me through hidden corridors, down servant stairs I had never noticed in 20 years of living there. My heart raced. Every shadow felt like discovery. When the gate finally closed behind us, something snapped inside me, fear and relief colliding so violently I almost collapsed. We drove all night. The city faded behind us. Glass and steel turned into trees and open fields. By morning, the air felt different, lighter, real. Sophia's house was small, weathered, and imperfect. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. Life there was slow, honest. I learned how to wake up without dread, how to eat without guilt, how to speak without rehearsing every word. At night, I listened to crickets instead of arguments. The silence no longer crushed me. I knew my parents would search. I knew money makes people relentless. But for the first time, I was no longer waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. My name is Anna, and this is not a story about escape. It is a story about reclaiming a life that was never meant to be owned.